sonríe y baila, sonríe y baila, sonríe y canta.
Yasis. Test, test, test. It's okay? American farm town, Japan, New York, languages, classical guitar, Paris, programmer, market analyst, Stockholm, photojournalist, Moscow, media executive, salsa dancer. These are a few of the chapters from my life. When people ask me today, Eddie, who do you want to be when you grow up? I say, don't rush me. I haven't decided yet. I'm enjoying my journey to my own Ithaca. Ithaca in Kafavi's poem is an allegory for life. It is about how we make our way in the world, how we strive to our destination. It touches on the most serious questions of philosophy, belief, and religion. Something we'd all like a few answers to. Well, we have about 17 minutes left. There should be enough time. In fact, I want to share with you today some things I've learned during my journey. But first, I'd like to talk for a minute about destinations. Belief, faith, tradition. It's symbolic to me we are discussing these ideas in Greece, a country between East and West, a country with different cultural traditions. Because I would argue that Ithaca's message is important for everyone, regardless of belief or tradition. Let's generalize for a minute. Western culture, where I'm from, has a very goal-oriented kind of mindset. Western culture tends to be literal, concrete, material. People set goals, do planning, get results. Hurrah, success! We see this in all aspects of life. In professional life, I see on work resumes all the time, goal-oriented, focused, success-oriented. Can't remember ever seeing on a resume not success-oriented. In our personal lives, we're setting goals. Lose those 5 kilos. Personal projects, long-term planning. In big politics, we set the economic goal. 5% growth this year, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year. I would even argue we see this mindset in Western religion and spirituality. In Christianity, we talk about attaining the goal of eternal life, eternal salvation. Now, when I think of all this, I sometimes think about what John Lennon once said. Life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. If Western culture is about goals, Eastern culture is more about living in the moment. Less about shaping our way in the world, and more about harmonizing with it. Sounds good, living in the moment. Try it sometime. It's harder to do than you think. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not against Eastern moments, and I'm not against Western goals. Have you ever thought for a moment about the fact that for most people in the world, these questions of faith and destination are determined not by study or a long soul-searching process, but simply by where you happen to be born or who your parents were? How can we be against a person's belief just because of where they were born or who their mother was? And Ithaca does not dwell on the choice of a person's destination. Ithaca's message is simple. For the business at hand, living, what beliefs you have, where you think you're headed, is really not that important. What is important is this. Regardless of your destination, as human beings, we all have 2 things in common. our journey, and adventure. Ithaca is a celebration of life. And adventure, Ithaca tells us, is important because it gives us useful life tools, such as experience, knowledge, and understanding. Okay, we all got a destination. Let's get on that journey and get some adventure. Seems like it should be easy. For starters, we know people are born with an innate curiosity about things. I believe we are also born with an innate benevolence to others. Seems logical. Cooperating with other people is more productive and satisfying than fighting with them. Some of you may not agree. Okay, we're curious, we're cooperative, ready for adventure. But hold on. Turns out there are obstacles to adventure, and they're pretty serious. Obstacle number 1, fear. We also happen to be born with an innate fear of the unknown. We see this right as children. Fear on the first day of school, fear when we first learn to swim or ride a bike. Obstacle number 2, our natural desire to economize on energy. Our own energy. We can call this laziness for short. Some adventures are just plain hard work. I can remember when I first started learning to read music. Big job. But besides fear and laziness, there is a third obstacle to adventure. This one is especially nasty and deserves special attention. We can call it egocentrism. It's a big word. The dictionary defines ecocentrics as people who regard themselves and their own opinions or interests as being the most important or valid. People who are unable to accept that reality can be different from what they know or believe. That's right, we can all get a little too cocky, a little too self-assured. We also see this problem right from childhood. When I was in 7th grade, I lived with my uncle's family in Japan. Now, even in 7th grade, I was hot. I had no doubt I knew just about everything you needed to know. In my new international school, French language was obligatory. Now, I was from America. I lived on a farm. I was a hunter. I was certainly not a French speaker. Big battle. One time, the school announced a big 5-day group ski trip. Great chance to learn how to ski. But I was busy at the time with more important sports, basketball. No time for me for any sissy skiing. But my uncle, a smart man, thought otherwise, and I ended up going. Now, in the end, these adventures brought me new important experiences. And very important, these experiences opened up new doors for me for more adventure in the future. French eventually led me to France. Reading music led me to making music. And the ability to ski led me later to some great skiing trips with my buddies. If you note, so far we've been talking about life adventure in terms of learning some new discipline, sports, music, language. This is important. But in life, we interact not only with disciplines. People, at least on this planet, interact with other people. We're social creatures. And social adventure, experiences with new or unusual people, is also very important. But as we set out on social adventure, we run into those same obstacles we talked about before. Fear, laziness, and the nasty one, egocentrism. Especially as we get older, we can become overconfident, self-satisfied, closed. We can easily become a prisoner of our own upbringing, culture, or religion. Fear of the unknown can turn to a critique of the foreign. It's a trap. It's a trap we all know, easy to criticize that which we don't understand. America. people with maybe not the best reputation for traveling or learning a lot about other people's cultures or languages. I remember once the American comedian Steve Martin on stage bragging about his international experiences. Yeah, he says, I've been to Europe, Paris, France. But I gotta warn you, those darn French, turns out they got their own word for everything. Learning about other cultures and lifestyles is an important part of Ithaca. And as before, it is in our own best interest. Small example. Each year, my 2 American buddies and I try to meet someplace new for a long weekend and catch up on life. A few years ago, we met in Prague. First evening, 11 p.m., where were we? You guessed it, in a pub, trying Czech beer, discussing serious topics. Suddenly, I hear Russian language. I turn around. 3 big Russian guys have just walked in. They see I've noticed them, and they come right on over. Now, I've lived in Russia for many years now. Russians, let's generalizing them for a minute, are creative, emotional, spontaneous, uninhibited. If personal space for speaking to each other in America is something like this, in Russia, it's something like this. Now these guys come right up to us. You could see they'd also been sampling the beer that evening. And in their unshy, Russian kind of way, started asking, what's going on? What's up? My American buddy John, smart, peace-loving guy, never been to Russia, interprets this as big-time aggression. And he whispers in my ear, Eddie, get this guy out of my face before I make him myself. Bad scene and unnecessary. Eventually, we all calmed down, thanks in large part to my experience, and we went on to have an interesting conversation together. But understanding another person's culture or point of view is not just about avoiding conflicts. It's also about gaining new understandings and appreciations. Let's take another example, hospitality. Making guests feel welcome and comfortable. Important part of life. In Greek, Philo Xenia. Did I say that right? Yeah, what you said, that's good. Philos, friend. Xenos, stranger. Being a friend to strangers. Okay. Several years ago, I lived for a short time at my buddy's house in America. Summer evening, we're at home eating dinner. Knock on the door. An old friend with his girlfriend had stopped by. My buddy waved them in, pointed to the couch, said they could get a glass of water if they wanted, and we all had a chat. Okay, hospitable, right? Now in Russia, people place great importance on hospitality. A guest almost always brings a gift, almost never leaves unfed. Many years ago, I was on photo assignment to the war zone in the Chechen Republic. I was traveling with 10 women from the Mother Soldier Committee looking for their missing sons. Last leg of our trip, traveling over back roads in an old rickety bus. Winter, snow, cold. Several times that day, we had to jump out of the bus, lie flat in the field, and wait for the shelling to stop. Around midnight, it became clear we would not arrive that day as we had planned. We stopped in a small village, found the biggest house, knocked on the door. Lights come on, a middle-aged woman answers the door, invites us in. She showed us to a big, almost empty room, asked her daughters to bring us blankets. She then ordered food to be prepared and said she would now go wake the master of the house. As we made our way into a simple dining area with a long plain table, in walked the master of the house. A small, stooped man, age 60, sleepy, silence. He looked at us, clasped his hands together, and said, "You are our guests. You are our friends, and we are happy to have you. And I want to thank you for coming here tonight. Because, you see, this food on the table, this is your food. Had you not come here tonight to receive it, I would have been obliged tomorrow to find you all and bring it to you myself. Thank you for saving me that trouble. Now let us eat together and be thankful." Now, my Russian friend Liana says, "Okay, that's a nice story, but pretty standard, no big deal." Number one, for me it's a big deal. Because it's experiences like that for me in Russia that have given me a new understanding of the art of hospitality. Number two, I think that if Liana could experience other cultures where hospitality is maybe less accented, she would better appreciate the hospitality she has in her own country. Think of it this way. Life is like a large globe. Each person looks at the globe from his own point of view. And that view is narrow, limited by personal experience and understanding. We are all looking at life as if through our own personal opening in a fence. I look through and see, say, the color green. It's lovely. Probably the best color in the whole world. And then I have some adventure, gain some experience, and my view widens. Hey, I see some blue and some red. Wow, great. And some brown, not so bad, but not as nice as my green. My green is in fact very, very lovely. We see that new perspectives can bring us not only new knowledge, but show us things we already know in a more full or balanced light. Now, in order to widen our views, learn about other people's perspectives, we can't always be jumping around the globe. Turns out you don't have to. If you want to hear a different point of view, turn to your right and ask your neighbor his opinion about something. Your neighbor has had different experiences than you. He has different understandings, different perspectives. Other people can be a great resource, especially if we're ready to open up our minds, push aside some preconceptions, and try to hear what that person is trying to tell us. I have a good buddy, James. He's pretty smart. At least that's what he tells me. Sometimes when James and I are discussing a hot topic, he'll say to me, "Eddie," he says, "I will always defend your right to your own stupid opinion." But I like better what Max Airman tells us in his poem Desderata. In 1927, he wrote, "Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others. Even the dull and the ignorant, they too have their story." There's a saying in Russia, happiness is when people understand you. Well, communication is a two-way street. I would say there is an important corollary here. Happiness is when you understand. One of my latest big adventures in life has been about learning Cuban music and salsa dancing. Talk about something new and tremendous. I've learned completely new things about the magic of music and movement. Sometimes I find myself asking, why didn't somebody tell me about this salsa thing sooner? Now, I'm not saying you should all rush out and start learning salsa dancing tomorrow, although you probably should. I'm serious. But I will say this. Curiosity, open-mindedness, listening, cooperation, fear, laziness, egocentrism, critique of the foreign. Keep these key words in mind. Try to apply the good ones, avoid the bad ones. Keep your own personal Lastrogonians and Cyclops as far away as possible. And whatever your destiny, on your journey, I wish you many new bold adventures. So you will not find yourself asking someday, why didn't somebody tell me about this sooner? Thank you.